Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on X and on Facebook. I am Bryson Carver. Appreciate y'all stopping by on this Friday. Jam-packed show. Well, I guess I should say a little bit of a shorter show today. Going to discuss Seahawks-Cardinals last night. Why Seattle's a little bit better than we thought. I mean, let's be honest. The 3-1 record, some 3-1s are like, depends on the schedule. Like, we're going to find out a lot about Indianapolis this weekend. Win or lose, just depending on how they compete with the Los Angeles Rams. With the Seattle Seahawks, I think better than the record suggests. I'll touch on that in just a second. Also, Arizona, they're running into the same problems that they have been for some time, and I'll touch on that. I'll also get into the Vol View, a big matchup. One, I must admit, that scares me a little bit for my Tennessee Volunteers, taking on Mississippi State on the road. Tennessee's first true road game on the road in Starkville. The home, by the way, of this bobblehead Dak Prescott behind me. Dak obviously played college football at Mississippi State. And based on how they've been playing this year, that upset over Arizona State, I'm a little nervous. I'm not feeling amazing about that game. Talk about that in the Vol View in about 10 to 15 minutes. And, of course, Week 4 NFL predictions, including Bryson's Bleak Bet, including Upset of the Week. And, of course, my favorite segment of all time, If I Were a Bet Man. I'm off to a good start this week. Right, I 1-0 against the spread. It took Seattle plus 1.5, and to win, they were able to get the job done, not without, of course, giving every Seahawks fan and person who took the Seahawks to win a little bit of a, not a heart attack, but getting us a little nervous. So let's go and talk about that. But first, Seattle wins the game last night 23-20 in a game that was, I mean, a laugher, a classic Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football, just sleeper. And then late, Arizona makes it interesting. Couple touchdowns late. Seattle misses a field goal before Arizona's tying touchdown drive. Then a botch on the kickoff, which, if you notice, the Panthers, Mike Vrabel actually talked about this because the Patriots are playing the Panthers. The Panthers did this last week, and the Rams did this last week. The Rams did it against the Philadelphia Eagles and gave them trouble, where we're going to manipulate the new kickoff rule to where the ball has to be inside the landing zone, inside the 20, rather than just kicking it deep. And so it's like a normal return. So our returner, the other team's returner gets a head start. Nobody can move until he touches the ball. Let's just kick it short of the 20. See if the ball kind of skips, does a weird bounce. Maybe it'll throw the returner off. We can pin it back deeper. So that's obviously what Arizona was trying to do. It fell short of the 20-yard line. Seattle got the ball at the 40. Jackson Smith-Njigba does what he does, and that's make a big play down the field. Seattle wins on a walk-off field goal. I think it is fair to say, because sometimes, especially this early in the season, teams with a good record, it's a mirage. We've seen teams in years past. We can use extreme examples, like my Pittsburgh Steelers in 2020. Started 11-0. None of us thought they were a contender. They were barely beating bad teams. The good teams, in some cases, were hurt. And then once they ran up against the good teams at the end of the season, they got absolutely demolished in the playoffs. Shocker. It's Mike Tomlin. His team lost by double digits in the first round, of course. We've seen plenty of teams where their record is not indicative of how good they are, positively or negatively. I mean, the 3-0 Indianapolis Colts did not make Bryson's best 10. They might make Bryson's best 10 if they lose on a walk-off field goal by the Rams, because that shows me, oh, you can compete with the big dogs. Denver's not as good as we thought, and then Miami and Tennessee are terrible. What are you going to do against the LA Rams, who are a legit Super Bowl contender? I'll predict that game toward the end of the show during predictions. The Seattle Seahawks are 3-1 and frankly should be 4-0. Let's keep it real. So they dominate my Steelers on the road, completely outplay Pittsburgh in the second half. Last week, just against an overmatched, and that's going to be the case in a lot of their games, overmatched New Orleans Saints team. It's a 38-6 game at the half. And then last night, let's be honest, they outplayed Arizona throughout the majority of it. Kyler, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride got hot at the end, made it interesting, tied it up late. Short kickoff, Darnold gets in the field goal range, and they walk it off with a kick. If not for two, and I've said this a million times, if not for two errors on the part of the Seattle Seahawks in one game against the 49ers in week 1, they're 4-0 at the top of the NFC West. The first of which is that when Brock Purdy, looks like he's coming back this weekend, is just on an interception fest, right? Those two ugly interceptions to Seattle in that game. San Francisco's dealing with injuries. Niners are driving down the field. Ricky Pearsall makes a play. Brock Purdy delivered on the money. Third down, got an opportunity to make a play. Requel, the ball is right there for you to make the play on a bad Brock Purdy throw. For some reason, you don't go for it. Backup tight end makes a play, but the game's not over. Jackson Smith-Njigba, kind of like he did last night, makes a big play, puts Seattle, close to the red zone. They get in the red zone, and Sam Darnold fumbles off the butt of one of his linemen. Niners recover, win the game. That's it. That is the thing about the NFL. The margin of error is that slim. If not for that play, folks, the Seattle Seahawks sit here today 4-0. And let's be honest, a large reason for that is their quarterback. And with respect to Geno Smith, who's a good starter, led the league in pass rating back in 2022. Geno's a good player. Not special, not as good as his fans would like to tell you. He's a good starter. Seattle absolutely upgraded the quarterback position, and we can show you. Sam Darnold since 2024, that's elite quarterback numbers. I'm not saying Sam is elite, although let's see him do it over the course of a season. If he does this back-to-back years, I won't hesitate to call him what his numbers would suggest he is, and that's elite. 40 touchdowns, 14 picks, 5,200 passing yards. This is since the start of 2024. Pass rating of 103 and a record of 17-4. If the Minnesota Vikings are looking back today, they're like, man, I know we spent a first-round pick on J.J. McCarthy. I know Sam Darnold in literally the two biggest games of the year. Week 18 at Detroit, the playoff game at the Rams was disastrous in both. I don't put the Rams game that much on Darnold just because the offensive line just got worked all night long by that Rams D-line, whatever the case may be. Played his two worst games of the year at the end of the year, the two most important games of the year for the Vikings. But Minnesota sat up there today like, you got to be kidding me. Like, Carson Wentz is our starter against Pittsburgh. Like, we should win that game. We obviously demolished Cincinnati last week, and Wentz is a fine backup quarterback. But then now we're in this, we're gonna have to make a choice between, Jameis Winston or J.J. McCarthy. Or not Jameis, I'm sorry, my bad. Carson Wentz or J.J. McCarthy. I mean, it's like we're wasting another year of Kevin O'Connell's brilliance and wasting another year of Brian Flores, who might be a head coach next year, and we got no playoff wins out of his defense, and that guy in Seattle's pretty good. Could have paid money to get him similar to what Baker Mayfield got. I mean, it's a disaster for Minnesota today. And if you're Seattle, NFC West is a brutal division. The Rams, to me, are the clear-cut favorites to win that division, just in terms of what they bring to the table offensively, defensively. They have, with respect to Shanahan, the best coach in the division in Sean McVay. As much as I love Shanahan, McVay does not have a history of blowing double-digit leads, going away from the run game in big spots. San Francisco is beat to hell right now. The quarterback's not healthy. It looks like Purdy is going to play, but the quarterback's missed games. They got injuries at wide receiver. Nick Bosa's out for the year. Trent Williams is older. Knock on wood for Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey has history. For Arizona, same old Arizona. Kyler, fine. He's about the, 16th, 17th best quarterback in the league. Jonathan Gannon is a good defensive coach, not a very good situational coach, as we've seen in all four of the Cardinals games this year. You look at Seattle today and you're thinking, okay, yeah, playoff team. Is it rich to say they could at least push? Could at least give the Rams a real run for the NFC West? Why not? I mean, they did win 10 games last year with Mike McDonald in his first year, with Geno Smith at quarterback, who was a downgrade from what Sam Darnold is this year and what Sam Darnold did a year ago. This is a good Seattle defense. It's an excellent defensive line, good secondary. They drafted well. Listen, we know about Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's an excellent player. I really like the kid, number 18. What was his name again? Elijah Arroyo. Good jump ball guy. Can make plays down the field. Good play. I mean, they've invested in the offensive line. Gray Zabel has had a solid year. Like, listen, John Schneider isn't one of the big name GMs like a Les Snead in Los Angeles or Howie Roseman in Philadelphia or Brett Veach in Kansas City. He doesn't get the shine that those guys get. John Schneider's done a really, really good job to move on from Pete Carroll. Kind of blindsided Pete, blindsided the fan base. Go with a defensive coordinator for Baltimore who had done a phenomenal job in Baltimore, but had never been a head coach before. Seattle's done well in the draft, and Seattle looks like they've got their franchise quarterback. I'm not, after what Darnold's track record says before last year, and I get it, a lot of it's with the Jets. There's a couple of years in Carolina. He was Purdy's backup in San Francisco back in 2023. Like, the overwhelming majority of his Football Reference page, so to speak, online would tell you above average quarterback on his best day in terms of just if you pull out the overall numbers for his career. But when he's in a stable, well-run organization, Minnesota, now Seattle, pretty good player. Show the numbers one more time. That's pretty good numbers. I will not call him elite. That's too far. Franchise quarterback? Yeah, I'm willing to say it. Give him a good, stable organization. Good coaching. We know he can make all the throws. That's why he was the third overall pick out of USC. That's why he was the highly touted prospect that he was coming out of college. the arm strength, the mobility. Like you saw, he had a big scramble in the first half. Good leadership, cool, calm, and collected. The Jets happened the way that it did because the Jets do that to all of their quarterbacks. The Browns do it to all of their quarterbacks. There's just certain franchises that cannot get the position right because they have an inability to evaluate it and to develop it, more importantly. So, we saw with Baker Mayfield, and Baker was better than in Cleveland Sam was in New York, obviously. But Baker had some some bad decision-making. It wasn't in the best shape in Cleveland. All of those things. And it goes back to what I was saying last week on carving up the context about Baker Mayfield, like where you land matters. And now that Sam's in a good organization in Seattle, you're seeing that right now. On the Cardinals side of it, I mentioned good early season records can at times be a mirage. And I think it's safe to say Arizona's 2-0 was just that. I'm not saying they're done or anything like that. They're 2-2. They've got 13 games left in the season. Who knows? I've got a game against Tennessee next week. They should win that. But what I've seen thus far for the Arizona Cardinals that concerns me, we know Kyler Murray's inconsistent. We know Kyler Murray does not bring the greatest leadership to the table. Doesn't seem like he interacts and communicates with his teammates all that much, which I do not love at all from a quarterback. We know his arm strength, especially for a guy his size, is insane. He obviously has a baseball background. He's fast as hell inside the pocket, scrambling, all of it. Some of this I put, and this isn't even taking heat off Kyler, because I think Kyler is kind of what he is. Physically limited, can make some big-time throws, moves well, can't always see over the offensive line, not always the best decision maker, doesn't bring the greatest leadership intangibles to the table. What I'm seeing through 4 games for the Arizona Cardinals, this is something that can get fixed over the course of the season, especially for a coach in his 3rd year, which Jonathan Gannon is. They're not the best situationally, and that's really for a league in the NFL, which it's almost been the theme of the show this year, where the margin of error is so freaking thin with the talent that's on the field every given Sunday, or in this case, Thursday or Monday, whatever the case may be. You've got to make the winning plays when they're there to be made. Week 1, Arizona went on the road and took on the Saints, who I think are universally regarded and should be, the way that they were coming into the season, as the worst team in football. Bad coaching staff, roster's not good. The good players, so to speak, are older vets, probably going to get traded at the deadline. They're an awful team. Cardinals had a double-digit lead in that game. Spencer Rattler got the ball back, and if not for a potential drop touchdown on the second-to-last play of the game, the Saints could have, with an extra point, sent it to overtime with a 2-point conversion, won the darn game. The Saints! Week 2, Arizona's got a 27-3 lead, not on Patrick Mahomes, not on Josh Allen, not on, Jalen Hurts, the comeback kid that he is, on Bryce Young. And I've defended Bryce Young, but come on. At home, the way your defense is rolling, Bryce gets hot, Carolina's moving the ball, down 5, and you botch an onside kick recovery, and you have to have old man Calais Campbell. I say old man as a very endearing term because Calais Campbell, great guy and has been an excellent player. But Calais Campbell has to save the day, making a play on Bryce Young at the end just to get out of that game. And then last week, tie game, late, you sack Mac Jones in the end zone for a safety. It's 15-13. It's like, we're going to get out of San Francisco with a win. As bad as we played offensively. James Conner gets hurt. We're going to... 3rd down, Zay Jones drops a pretty perfect ball from Kyler, who had been kind of all over the place all afternoon in San Francisco. You kick it back to Mac Jones, who goes right down the field on your defense. And the Niners walk it off at the gun with a field goal. And then last night, again, tie the game. It's 2020 all. We got momentum, and we botched the short kick. It falls short of the 20-yard line. Seattle starts at the 40, and at that point, with that much time left in the game, it was inevitable. The Seahawks were going to get in field goal range. It was just a matter of them making the kick this time. So 4 games, even the ones that Arizona won, they were not good situationally, and that is really important. And by the way, there was even, and shout out to my man Patrick Brown, who's written some new articles on the Grid Network website, so be sure to check that out. But we're both big on clock management, on like every coach in an interview should be forced to play Madden, or where they should have the analytics department or the tech department for these NFL organizations should rig the software, should rig the Madden software to where it intentionally puts you in said situations. How do you manage the clock? Some of this is like, oftentimes I've said, one of the reasons I prefer the NFL over college football is some of the situational play, and some of this is the fact that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. And some of it is the coaching college just simply is not what it is in the NFL. That goes without saying. Is that the clock management in college football is bad? The same case can be made with Jonathan Gannon at the end of the first half. So Kyler scrambles. I want to make sure I get this right. Scrambles to the 35-yard line, his own 35-yard line rather. It's 3rd down and 13. He goes down with 10 seconds left, I believe. The Cardinals don't use a timeout till there's 2 seconds left. And then they throw like a screen pass. Well, why not with 10 seconds left, 10 seconds to change? Let's see if we can get a 15-yard completion out of bounds, and maybe we get a Hail Mary, and who knows what happens. Not saying it works, but give ourselves a shot. It's these situational spots for Arizona that they just don't execute very well in. The Saints almost lost. Week 2 against Carolina, 27-3. You blow an onside kick at the end, and Carolina almost goes down and wins it. If Calais Campbell doesn't make a play, maybe they do win it. Last week, you got a 2-point lead on the Mac Jones Niners. Can't convert on 3rd down. Can't get a stop on said Mac Jones. And then last night, 2 touchdown drives. You've turned the momentum. Marvin Harrison Jr., after a brutal first half, and really a brutal start to the season in general, has his confidence back, is making plays. Kyler Murray's wheeling and dealing. Botched the special teams. That's a knock on the coach. It is. And I think Jonathan Gannon is a good defensive mind. He was a good DC in Philadelphia before he got the job in Arizona, and he's done a good job at that Cardinals defense. Like, that is the bare minimum for a head coach in the NFL. It's why I always said Robert Saleh's not a good head coach, but at the very least, the Jets' defense was good. It was always good under Saleh. I mean, look what Saleh's doing with the Niners. He's a great defensive coach. That is the bare minimum for a head coach in the NFL. Do you have your side of the ball right? That was where Brandon Staley's one of the worst coaches I've ever seen. Defensive guy. Chargers defense was atrocious in his time there. The defense is good in Arizona. It is. They're just not good situationally in all 3 phases. That's the knock on them. So, Arizona's got a game next week. Obviously, extra time to rest against against Tennessee. They're 7.5-point favorite early on in that game. I have to imagine that the line will change throughout the next 10 days. But if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, it's kind of more of the same. You feel like you overpaid for Kyler. Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't giving you the production you thought he would out of Ohio State. And I still believe in Marvin Harrison Jr. long-term. He's only in year 2. But generally speaking, with some of these quote-unquote generational talents at receiver, they tend to pop quick. Justin Jefferson did. Jamar Chase did. CeeDee Lamb did. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, all of these guys kind of pop. I mean, even in terms of tight ends, Brock Bowers, even with bad quarterback play right off the bat. Oh my gosh, is he the best tight end in football? Even guys like Ricky Pearsall, to a lesser degree in San Francisco, has kind of done that. So there you go. All right, we will go to break, but when we come back, a next edition of the Vol View, and a game I must admit I'm a little nervous for as a Vols fan against Mississippi State. Stay tuned, the Vol View, after the break. Welcome back to the Vol View live. Welcome back to Carving It Up, rather. We're about to do the Vol View in just a second live on Carving It Up. Thanks for stopping by on this Friday. Kind of a shortened show. Again, reaction to last night's game, Vol View, NFL prediction for week 4. Also a little bit, after the Vol View, a little bit of a preview of what is sure to be a very, very exciting weekend in Major League Baseball with the final week of the regular season. My Red Sox have an opportunity tonight, or really over the next 3 games, but let's do it tonight. Let's get it over with. At Fenway Park, at home against the struggling, as of late, Detroit Tigers, to wrap up a playoff spot for the first time in 4 years, and only the second time since the Sox last won the World Series back in 2018. So I'm very anxious, very excited for the Sox to hopefully get a W tonight against Detroit. Talk about some of those, Major League Baseball playoff scenarios after the Vol View. But it is a big game for Tennessee. And among what is going to be an unbelievable Week 5 in college football, just name some of the important matchups. LSU, Ole Miss, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. I mean, come on. USC, Illinois, even in the early window of games. Lost kind of sandwich in the middle of the day in college football is a game featuring my Tennessee Volunteers and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Conference matchup, Tennessee's very first road game of the season in the SEC. And I have to admit, I'm not a man who bites my nails very often, or really ever. This one makes me a touch nervous, and I'll explain why on this week's edition of The Vol View, which starts right now.
In Tennessee.
Indeed it is. I'm wearing my old school Peyton Manning jersey, supporting the greatest quarterback in the history of Tennessee football. In my opinion, the second greatest volunteer football player of all time to the late, great Minister of Defense, Reggie White, which, by the way, I will say this on the front end before we get into tomorrow afternoon's game between Tennessee and Mississippi State. Got a very exciting episode of the Vol View, a segment of the Vol View coming next week. It's Tennessee's first bye week of the season. I actually went to last week's game. Some of you may know this, against UAB. Tennessee's matchup against UAB. Was fortunate enough to get really solid seats, but it is going to be a special edition of the Vol View in the sense of I'm going to try and show you what it's like to be a fan. Going to Neyland Stadium, experiencing the band, the pageantry, all of it, Tennessee running through the T. Tennessee with a 60 burger, by the way, last week against the UAB Blazers, 56 points rather against the UAB Blazers. We'll touch on that obviously next week on the show. But for this week's matchup against Mississippi State, a team that, by the way, is 4-0 and not with 4 cupcake victories. You look at Mississippi State's schedule and it's like, Southern Miss, Alcorn State, last week against Northern Illinois. Wait a second. Second game of the year. A home game nonetheless, nonetheless against Arizona State. A college football playoff team last year. A Big 12 champion last year. A team that came mostly on the back of Cam Scadaboo. Very close to knocking off the Texas Longhorns last year. And for the record, I'm holding true. I still believe Arizona State is going to win the Big 12. I think they're going to beat TCU tonight. I really do. And Mississippi State beat them. In large part, in that game and over the last few, because of Mississippi State's unbelievable, and not in that game, so to speak, but over the course of the season, unbelievable running game. They averaged 5.5 yards a carry. They've got solid quarterback play, good coaching, and we know they're on the road at Mississippi State. And I will never not have this take because it drives me insane. With the single most annoying sound in all of the world, cowbells. Oh, I hate cowbells. And I hope the Tennessee Volunteers, I hope Josh Heupel, head coach of the Vols, has been drilling that god-awful sound into the ears at practice of his players, because they're going to be hearing it for 3.5 hours. Mississippi State, folks, is going to be doing a whiteout in Starkville. So Tennessee on the road is actually wearing, they're all orange uniforms, or jerseys, orange pants, orange britches, as Trey Smith would call orange socks. So it's going to be a little bit of a different vibe, different atmosphere on the road for Tennessee. They took care of Mississippi State last year, got a dominant win in Neyland Stadium. But this is a new Mississippi State team. This is a new Tennessee team. And I must admit, through the first 4 games, obviously I've been blown away by the offense. Obviously I've been blown away by Joey Aguilar, who's completing over 60% of his throws on deep balls over 20 yards down the field. Thus far, I have not been extraordinarily blown away by the Tennessee defense. And to be fair, got both starting cornerbacks back last week against UAB. Ricky Gibson II, Jermon McCoy. So you're much better suited in the defensive backfield than you were. But this season, 26 against Syracuse, 17 against my beloved ETSU Bucks, 44 against Georgia. It's Georgia. I will. It was a shootout, whatever the case may be. And then 24, including a devastating backdoor cover against UAB. And UAB, to a degree, did move the ball relatively well in Tennessee. So I will say this on the front end. I think the sucker's a lot closer than people think. I think we could see a scenario in which Tennessee goes into the fourth quarter and it's 24-24 or 27-24 Tennessee, and it is, let's just get out of Mississippi with a W and let's move on to our bye week before we get Arkansas in a couple of weeks. Get a W on the road, 1-0 on the road, 1-1 in the SEC. Let's continue this good momentum we have. Even our one loss, it's kind of universally green on college football. Gosh darn it, man, if not for a false start and a make kick, they're undefeated with the win over Georgia. And they're absolutely in the top 10. But alas, the kick was no good. Lost in overtime to the Dogs. I'm going to go. I don't love Tennessee minus 7.5, but I'm a Vols fan, so I'm going to roll with it. 34-24. That should say Mississippi State 4-0. I apologize. But Tennessee 34, Mississippi State 24. I mean, I guess I'm not overly confident in this game, but I think my Vols win it when it's all said and done. So that is this week's edition of the Vol View, which let's just get out Mississippi State with a dub. Okay, let's get out Mississippi State with a dub. That's it for this week's edition of the Vol View.
Football time in Tennessee.
All right, welcome back to Carving It Up Live. So last segment, again, like I said, a little bit of a shorter episode of the show today, but I did want to get into week 4 NFL predictions. Before I do, let's go ahead and look at what is going to be an insane weekend in Major League Baseball. So again, Cubs beat the Cardinals today 12-1, so they've, I guess, pretty much locked up the top wild card spot in the National League. So that's really the only significance that game had. Outside of that, a lot of games we played in Major League Baseball. First of all, let's just get right to business. The Boston Red Sox have an opportunity tonight, and really at any point over the next 3 days, to clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2021 and only for the second time since 2018, which of course was the most recent World Series title for the beloved Red Sox. I find it incredibly ironic and could be a great victory from the front office. Who is the starter for the Red Sox against the Detroit Tigers, who, by the way, are in the midst of what might be one of the worst collapses we've ever seen by a team in September in our lifetimes in Major League Baseball? Who is on the hill for the Red Sox but Kyle Harrison? Kyle Harrison, of course, was a part of the Rafael Devers trade, of which back this summer, myself and virtually every Red Sox fan in Boston, outside of Boston, everywhere. What are we doing? We just punting on the season? We just swept the Yankees? Devers homered against the Yankees? What are we doing? And since then, it's been a different season in Boston. Hot streak before the All-Star break. There was a point in time in late August, early September, I'm like, holy crap, we got to steal the AL East? That is off the table now. But you go on the road to Toronto, take 2 of 3. Pitching was exceptional in both. Stumbled a little bit last night, 6-1. That's all right. It was just tough to sweep Toronto anyway. But opportunity tonight at Fenway freaking Park in front of those fans, where you are with these guys, these young guys who the overwhelming majority of them were not on the team back in 2021 when they did make their last deep postseason run. They're going to feel that bit of Fenway Park playoff atmosphere. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit crisp in the air in Boston. Not chilly, not yet, not mid to late October weather. Hopefully the Sox can get to that point. But just a certain feeling in the air in Boston. As we know, Fenway has and always will be one of the great playoff atmospheres in all of American team sports. I would argue 2021, which is the Sox last postseason appearance, they got to the ALCS that year, took the Astros 6 games. The Red Sox were not the second best team in the American League in 2021. In many instances, that fan base, in large part, spurred the momentum, spurred the Sox on to get the victories that they got. Most notably, 2 walk-off wins in games 3 and 4 against the Tampa Bay Rays. And I got an opportunity to sense that, to taste that vibe, that energy a little bit tonight. So I got the Sox winning tonight. I think Kyle Harrison gets the W, and I think it is for the Sox front office. Again, Kyle Harrison, who was, for all of us Sox fans, were like, that's what we got for Devers? That and some prospects? Are you kidding me? For one of the top 10 hitters in baseball at the time? Got an opportunity to get a big win. And I think the Red Sox do it. So give me the Red Sox in this game over Detroit. And by the way, I think when it's all said and done, then we'll get to NFL picks. I think when it's all said and done, Toronto just edges out the Yankees for the division, because I think Toronto takes 2, which Toronto is the tiebreaker. So if both teams sweep, if the Yankees and Blue Jays sweep, the Blue Jays end up taking the AL East, because both Toronto and New York are tied at 91 wins. I think Toronto sweeps Tampa Bay. I think the Yankees go 2 out of 3 against the Baltimore Orioles. So that would mean the Blue Jays would get the top seed in the American League. Seattle Mariners are number 2. Seattle Mariners, who, by the way, with respect to the great Aaron Judge, the Seattle Mariners, who clearly and obviously had the American League MVP in Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, who has an outside chance. It's slim. It would be insane if he did it. But to break the American League record, once set by Roger Maris 6 decades ago, then reset by Aaron Judge, that record broken by Aaron Judge back in 2022, 3 years ago. Outside chance, Cal Raleigh become the American League single-season home run record holder. Maybe. It's on the board. But I think the Blue Jays sweep. Regardless of what happens from there, that would mean the Mariners will be the 2 seed. So Toronto and Seattle automatic buys the ALDS. That would mean the 3 seed and the 6 seed comes down to what happens with the Cleveland Guardians and the Detroit Tigers. Obviously, Detroit is playing my Red Sox and is in the midst of a collapse, the likes of which we really haven't seen in Major League Baseball history, really recent history. At the end of August, folks, the Tigers had a 12.5 game lead on the American League Central. As of 2 nights ago, they were down a game to the Guardians. They were able to beat Cleveland, which was a potential season-saving win, not just to potentially get the division back, but just to stay in the wild card mix. The Guardians have a 3-game series against Texas. I think the Tigers drop 2 of 3 to my Red Sox. I think they lose tonight and then lose one of the next 2 games, Saturday, Sunday. Cleveland just needs to get 2 at that point against Texas. Cleveland, I'm going to be nice to y'all today. I'm going to be nice to the city of Cleveland.
Cleveland! This is for you!
And I think the Guardians are the 3 seed. Pull off a shocking comeback to steal the AL Central. The Astros will sweep the Anaheim Angels, be the 6th, and knock the Detroit Tigers out of the playoffs. I feel like I am hurting the equity that I built with the amazing city of Detroit, Michigan. I have friends who are from Detroit. I have friends who are Lions fans and Tigers fans. And still Detroit, I love you. But I think it's going to happen. Therefore, Guardians will be the 3. Astros will be the 6. We'll get a best-of-3 wildcard series next week. But more importantly, we get Yankees, Red Sox, baby. Best-of-3 wildcard series from the faux Yankee Stadium. I know they call it the Yankee. It's not the real Yankee Stadium, which they demolished nearly 2 decades ago. Just a note for all the Yankee fans out there, because I do think that's the matchup we're going to get in the wild card series. Just know, since you guys went up 3-0 in the 2004 American League Championship Series, since it was a 3-0 series, the New York Yankees have won one playoff game over the Boston Red Sox. The Sox got the 4 straight to complete the greatest comeback in baseball history back in 2004. The team did not play in the postseason until 2018, when the Red Sox took 3 games out of 4 in the best of 5 series, including getting the W in Yankee Stadium, that closeout Game 4, which I guess they also won in the real Yankee Stadium in Game 7 back in 2004. Took that series 3-1. And then the wild card game, back when it was still a wild card game, back in 2021, a W at Fenway against the Yankees. New York has gotten one single playoff win against the Boston Red Sox since going up 3-0 in the American League Championship Series in 2004. So history is not on New York's side if we're going by 21st century standards in history. That's all I'll say. Okay. In the National League, all 3 divisions have been wrapped up. The Dodgers most recently clinched the National League West last night with the victory over the Diamondbacks. So all 3 divisions are set. All 3 playoff seeding virtually are set unless Milwaukee has some kind of crazy collapse. The Milwaukee Brewers, best team in baseball this year, how could have seen that coming, are going to be the number 1 seed in the National League. Philadelphia Phillies will be 2. Defending champion Dodgers will be the 3 seed. What happens in the wild card mix? Well, Chicago, they're pretty much locked in. They're locked in as the first wild card team. Same case can be made for the San Diego Padres. The Arizona Diamondbacks are technically 2 games back, but with 3 games to go, the Diamondbacks, barring a miracle, are not going to get in the postseason. It really comes down to the New York Mets and the Cincinnati Reds. The Mets, who, to their credit, and this was gutsy on this team's part, on the road at Wrigley Field, took 2 of 3 off the Cubs to really keep their season alive. So now for Chicago, take care of business in this 3-game series against the Miami Marlins in Miami, which we know has no home field advantage, back in the postseason. Once again, 2nd year in a row. For the Cincinnati Reds, pretty tough on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers, but after tonight, in all likelihood, the Brewers will have nothing to play for. Obviously, they've already clinched the NL Central, but they'll have wrapped up the 1 seed. They're resting their guy. The next 2 games mean nothing for Milwaukee. Mean everything for Cincinnati, who obviously won yesterday against Pittsburgh, second to last out, 26th out of the game, a robbed homer in right field. I think the Mets get in, which would mean, and I hate to say that to my friends who are Cincinnati Reds fans. My dad actually grew up a Cincinnati Reds fan, so I feel bad saying that. Sorry, Dad, a fan of the Big Red Machine back in the day. But that would mean in the NL wildcard series. So we get a Chicago Cubs, San Diego Padres series, which is awesome. Those are 2 legit World Series contenders. But we get a New York Mets, LA Dodgers NL wildcard series. I am certainly leaning heavy Dodgers, but for what it's worth, Mets pushed them further than the Yankees did. Mets pushed them to 6 games. Mets got a victory at Dodger Stadium, which is where that series would be from start to finish if it goes all the way to a Game 3. With the the playoff pedigree of Pete Alonso, the playoff experience of Juan Soto, the championship pedigree of Juan Soto, who's been to 2 World Series, won 1 back when he was a young fella, back in 2019 with the Washington Nationals. I can't wait for this weekend, baby. Postseason baseball's back. I cannot wait. All right. With all that said, NFL predictions week 4. Let's go and get a look back at what I did last week. Depends on how you look at it, right? Overall record, against the spread, 6 games under 500, and hoping to improve on that. Ups of the week, got my first one right last week, so I feel good about that. 1-2, get another one right this week. Boom, we're right back at 500. Bryson's Bleak bet, is that not ironic? 3-0. 3-0. Maybe I should rename Bryson's Bleak bet to Bryson's Strongest Bet. It's unbelievable. Maybe that should be the If I Were a Betting Man games. Can we switch that? I don't know. Is it too late to do that? Bryson's Bleak bet, 3-0. And If I Were a Betting Man, 3-6, which is awful. But last week it was 1-5. So winning week, I got an opportunity. If I can just go undefeated this week, ladies and gentlemen, I'm 500 and I'm right back in business, just like an upset of the week. So a lot on the line in week 4 for me. So 1-0 against the spread, Took Seattle plus 1.5, took them obviously to an outright. 1-0 in both instances. So let's get the background music going and do week 4 NFL predictions. Here we go. But we'll start with my favorite segment of all time. There's a degree I hope I'm wrong on this, but of course, gotta be honest, it is my favorite segment of all time. It is called
Bettin Man.
If I Were a Bet Man. I'm looking at the game in Dublin, Ireland. Yes, Dublin. Sunday morning game between the Minnesota Vikings and my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers in Ireland. So the Steelers are technically the home team. It's a neutral site. Minnesota is a 2.5-point favorite to win this game. So I think there's an opportunity this game is over by the end of the third quarter. I really, really, really do. Aaron Rodgers, the last time he faced Brian Flores, who Aaron Rodgers, if we can, actually, I don't think we have the graphic, but Aaron Rodgers, after the Steelers went up 14-0, I know this is why I say don't look at box scores. Last week, after this Pittsburgh Steelers went up 14-0 in the first quarter, Aaron Rodgers had a whole 73 passing yards, a touchdown, a bad interception that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense bailed him out on, which they did multiple times in the course of that game, and a passer rating of 66. It was bad, showing his age. The Steelers' offensive line, to its credit, was solid against New England. Aaron wasn't throwing the deep ball well. Aaron wasn't, shocker, he's old. He wasn't moving well. And now you have him going against Brian Flores' defense after what they just did to Jake Browning and the Bengals. After the fact that Aaron Rodgers last year with the Jets, the last time that he faced Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Vikings, and that Minnesota defense, they turned him over not once, not twice, but 3 times. One of them being a pick six, the other of which, Jets down 6, going down to win the game, game-ending interception. That defense is who he's facing this weekend. I think this thing could get ugly fast. The only chance the Steelers have to win this game, the only chance they have to win, because Aaron's not going to ball. We know that. Is if Carson Wentz turns back into the old Carson Wentz and really does what the New England Patriots did last week. Not in the sense of fumbling the ball per se, but turning the football over, setting Pittsburgh up in short field situations, because that is the only way this team can win games, which drives me insane if you can't tell. And I've ranted about it all offseason. There's one singular way for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win games. Defense to step up. I don't know, 11 straight games of giving up 300 yards, leads the NFL. That's not great. That's not ideal. Against the likes of Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Kevin O'Connell calling plays. If I were a bet man, Minnesota minus 2.5 is absolutely the play here. Give me the Vikings 27-16 in a score rather, that will not indicate how lopsided this game will be. As always, anytime I pick against my Steelers, hope I'm wrong. But Aaron, against that pass rush, against that Brian Flores coach defense, please. Vikings 27, Steelers 16. Aaron in this game throws 2 picks. All right, first ever start in the history of Jackson Dart, a.k.a. Anakin Skywalker.
This is where the fun begins.
So the Giants are at home against the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers on the road are favored minus 6.5. So as we all know, and I talked about this on Wednesday's show, the only reason Jackson Dart is starting is to preserve the job on Brian Dable and to preserve the job of Joe Shane, head coach and GM, respectively. But show promised the preseason, moved well. Arm strength showed us the good qualities that a lot of us liked about him when he was at Ole Miss. Now, the consistency, up and down, he's hot and cold. But Dable's an offensive coach. He's got Malik Neighbors, who's off the injury report, so he's good to go this week. Tyrone Tracy is out long-term with the shoulder. But Cam Scatterboot, first couple of games of his career, he runs just as hard as he did at Arizona State. Not sure how long of a career this guy's going to have, but in the here and now as a rookie, Cam Scatterboot's going to be great. Got Robinson, they've got talent. They've got Andrew Thomas back at left tackle. The Giants are solid offensively. The problem is Jesse Minter in this Chargers defense. Jesse Minter is the defensive coordinator. Even without Khalil Mack, Chargers defense is off the charts. Derwin James is in the early race without question to be in the defensive player of the year race. So I think it's a situation where if you took the Chargers minus 6.5, you're a little bit nervous for a backdoor cover. I think the Giants score a late touchdown. I could see this thing being like 10-10 at the half, and it's like, oh my gosh, is Jackson Dart going to pull an upset over Herbert and the Chargers? I do not think that happens. You saw where I had the Chargers on Bryce's best 10. I've got them as the second best team in football after what I've seen over the first few weeks. Chargers win. They go to 4-0, 24-17 over the New York Giants. I don't love them minus 6.5, but I will hesitantly take that. Okay. This one's not enough for me to put it on if I were a bet man, but I think this is an outlandish line. 2 0-3 teams, AFC South, Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans in Houston. The Texans are 7.5-point favorites. How? After what we've seen from their offense, 9, 19, and 14. Sorry, my bad. 9, 19, and 10 is rather is what I meant to say. What do those numbers have in common? They're what the Texans have scored in their first 3 games. In large part for all the reasons that I did not think the Texans would win the division and be a playoff team in 2025 because the O-line's bad and the wide receiving core is non-existent outside of Nico Collins. As great, and it's a shame because of how great this Houston Texans defense is. And this will be a low-scoring affair. Whatever the over-under is for this game, what's the over-under? 39.5? Under. Do not take the over in this spot. Out of respect for Houston, Cam Ward will make some plays in this game. Out of respect for Houston, I'll give the Texans their first win of the season, 20-13. It's at home. Like, you can't lose to Tennessee. Obviously, the loser of this game, their season's over. No one's going from 0-4 to the postseason. Obviously, the Titans aren't, and certainly the Texans aren't. 7.5. I'll take Titans plus 7. That's a bit much. Okay, Washington Commanders and Atlanta Falcons. This is a line that has flipped. It flipped all the way to Atlanta minus 2.5. It's now back down to Atlanta minus 1.5. It was Washington minus 1.5 as recently as this morning. That is until Dan Quinn announced, Jaden Daniels out for this week. Terry McLaurin out for this week. So Washington, who was already beat up with injuries, Austin Eckler, Dietrich Wise. Now there's no Jaden Daniels, no Terry McLaurin. Now, to be fair, the Commanders last week ran the football effectively. Mariota was relatively efficient. Commanders were great in terms of special teams against the Vegas Raiders. But the Falcons have a better defense than the Vegas Raiders. You look last week, you're like, how? It's 30-0. A lot of that was turnovers. Michael Penix Jr. threw a pick 6 on a check down, which is a bit concerning. And I like Penix, but a lot of it was setting up Carolina in short yardage situations. Atlanta's defense was not to fault for that. They played well. They held Tampa Bay to 23 to their credit in the first game of the season, held Minnesota to 6. It's a decent Falcons defense. Raheem Morris is a defensive coach. They've invested, particularly in the defensive line, in the draft. So at home, given not just that Washington is beat up, but given that Washington's weakest unit of their entire team, their secondary, is also beat up, I'll take Atlanta in the spot, 24-21. I think this game's going to be pretty close, but the Falcons need to win. Washington, obviously, they'd be overjoyed to go 2-0 without Jane Daniels, get to 3-1, and be within striking distance of Philadelphia for the NFC East, but I just can't see Washington's defense being able to get enough stops, and there's an element of, if you're a well-coached team, I think Raheem Morris is a good coach. I think Michael Penix has the potential to be a really good quarterback. When you get embarrassed the way they did, especially by a divisional opponent, you got to bounce back, especially at home, especially in front of your fan base. You can't start 1-3. So Falcons minus 1.5. I think they win this game. It almost feels like taking candy from a baby. It does. But it's now time for my favorite segment of all time. It is called...
You're a betting man.
If I were a bet man, I mean, there's the line almost can't be big enough. It's the New Orleans Saints, and it's the Buffalo Bills from Buffalo, New York. Buffalo is a 15.5-point favorite, which I think is the biggest of the NFL season thus far. There's 2 teams in the National Football League in opposite conferences. One I'm about to talk about shortly. That consistently at home in the early window time slot against overmatched opponents blow the bleeping doors off of their opponents. The Detroit Lions in the NFC, set your clocks to it at Ford Field, and the Buffalo Bills at Highmark Stadium. After what New Orleans showed last week with that defense, with that coaching staff, which was, I joked before the season, I kind of half joked, I'm kind of serious. The coaching staff from hell, Kellen Moore calling the offense, Brandon Staley calling the defense. What is happening? I feel bad for y'all Saints fans. Y'all don't deserve this. And you got Buffalo coming off 3 extra days rest at home with Josh Allen on a roll, probably at the top of the MVP discussion. The way this offense is humming, 30 points scored in every single game. This thing is over before it even starts. 15.5. That says 14.5. It should say 50. Might sound a little bit risky. I literally, knock on wood, obviously, for Josh Allen. Biggest knock on wood for him of all time. I literally don't even see a scenario in which the Saints can win this game. I literally don't see it. Could I see a scenario in which they cover? Maybe. Win? No chance. It's not necessarily about winnings per se, so much as it is, do they cover? If I were a bet man, Bills minus 14.5, Bills minus 15.5, tomato. I'll keep it there at 14. They'll win this game handily. Great 1 o'clock window game. Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Philadelphia is a 3.5-point road favorite. By the way, fun fact. The Eagles have not lost a game in which Jalen Hurts started and finished since week 4 of last season against the Tampa Bay Bucks in Tampa. Week 4 this year in Tampa. So there's a bit of a, wow, will history repeat itself? It's hard to believe, man. Week 4 last year, Eagles get kind of housed by the Bucks, and I come on my show and I'm like, see, told you, they're average. They lost 6 of their last 7 games to end 2023, got blown out by Tampa in the postseason. Now they've started 2-2. They blew the game against Atlanta, got blown out by Tampa. They're not that good. Yeah, the Eagles have lost 1 game since that point. The only game they lost was against Washington in a game that came down the wire. Jalen Hurts got hurt in the first half, didn't come back. And they obviously cruised to a Super Bowl title. They're 3-0 with a pretty remarkable comeback last week against a great Los Angeles Rams team. And Jalen Hurts. Hey, by the way, can we see what Jalen Hurts did in the second when he was trailing against the Rams? There you go. 3 touchdowns, no picks. Completion percentage not amazing at 62%, but 212 passing yards and a passer rating of 118. This whole idea, he needs the run game. He needs the system to work. Well, I ask, which system? Which of the 6 systems that he has been a part of? He's had 6 different play callers with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Tampa Bay's really beat up. Their offensive line is. Chris Godwin may not play. Mike Evans absolutely will not play this game. He's probably out 2 to 3 weeks. So Tampa, Kalijah Cansey's done for the year. Like, they're really, really beat up right now. If the Bucs can find a way to win this game, they're even better than I thought, and I had the Bucs as a legit Super Bowl contender. But I will take the Philadelphia Eagles in somewhat of a close game. They do cover minus 3.5, but 26-20. Listen, Baker's a gamer. Baker's a scrapper. Baker will make this thing somewhat interesting, but I'll take Philadelphia to win 26-20 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, speaking of games I just talked about with Buffalo and New Orleans, I just referenced this team. Teams at home in the early game, or early Sunday window, 1 o'clock, that just boat race the competition if the competition's overmatched. The Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions. Detroit at home is a 10.5-point favorite, despite coming off of a short week. So, listen, Cleveland, kudos. Got the victory over the Green Bay Packers. Got to have a little cheesehead Ozzy moment. I've got a little cheese right here, but I'll put it up. But you do not win that football game if Jordan Love doesn't throw a pick that gets returned to the 4-yard line. Browns punch it in. Block the kick by McManus. Kudos to you. End up walking off with the gun. But as my professor, my college professor, Brad Bodie, shout out to him. I hope he's watching the show. Huge Packers fan. As he was saying, dude, just run the ball. We punt it to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's not going 80 yards on that defense. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. And for as much as this Lions defense has struggled, gave up 30 to Baltimore, although one of those was kind of a garbage time touchdown. They had 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson, who we know can move with the best of them. Joe Flacco can't. Joe Flacco, respect. Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, got a big contract a long time ago. Big arm, made that throw against Denver back in the day. Joe Flacco's got a great resume and a great history in Baltimore. But this feels to me for this Detroit Lions defense like a boost your confidence game. See, I felt that way for the Lions offense. Where it's, yeah, you blow out Chicago. What are you going to do on the road in Baltimore? And the answer was, we're going to run for 200 yards, convert on every 4th down, known to man, because that's what Dan Campbell does. This Lions defense is an opportunity. Let's hold the Browns under 20. Let's set that benchmark. Hold them to under 20, because even as great as Cleveland's defense is, our offensive line is performing well, certainly better than Green Bay's has. Jared Goff's been accurate. Amon St. Brown's going to have 1 or 2 touchdowns in this game. Gibbs, Montgomery. This is a get-right game. This is a build-your-confidence game for the future. for the Detroit Lions. That's all I'll say. Give me the Lions in this game, 31-13. They do cover easily, minus 10.5, and they win this one 31-13, win their third straight game in a row to get to 3-1. It is now time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. It's the one game each and every week that I have absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. Man, I don't know what to do with this game. Carolina Panthers, New England Patriots in Foxborough. The Patriots are a 5.5-point favorite. I am so conflicted on this one because on one hand, Carolina with a dominant defensive performance last week against Atlanta, some of that was Michael Penix Jr. and his struggles. Bryce Young ran the ball well. Chuba Hubbard was solid. They were good. Carolina, as I said, better than folks think. They will be a team that will spoil somebody's season. 7 wins, they can mess somebody's season up. Maybe they beat Tampa Bay at some point and cost the Bucs the 1 seed. Who knows? They've got the capability. They're well coached in offense and defense. Bryce is coming into his own. And for New England, it is how they managed to lose that game against my Steelers is beyond me. They outgained Pittsburgh by over 150 yards. Like, better on 3rd down and 4th down. Like, all of it. 4 fumbles and a goal line pick. Just 3 points in the garbage. And still lost that game by 7. Still had the ball late with a chance to tie. They completely outplayed the Steelers. So there's a part of me that's like, man, 5.5, a team that's pissed off, that should have won last week, man, they're going to... And then a part of me, it's like, yeah, but the Patriots aren't quite willing to take the next step that a lot of folks in the media thought that they would. Them and Carolina are kind of on the same level. I'll take New England to win. 5.5's a little too much. It is. I don't feel great about it. One of these teams going to be 2-2 and feeling pretty good about themselves. 24-20, Patriots win. I'll be honest, I went back and forth. New England minus 5.5, Carolina minus 5.5. Just shows you the back and forth I went on this game. New England wins. They outplayed the Steelers and should have won. Like, is that going to drag them down this week? Is the momentum from the win by Carolina over Atlanta going to propel? I believe in Mike Vrabel. That's why. And I believe in Drake May, by the way, who played well against the Steelers when he got good protection. Okay, it is now time for my upset of the week. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars to beat the San Francisco 49ers, hand them their first loss of the 2025 season, 21-19, in somewhat of a defensive battle. Jaguars not just plus 3.5, but to win this game outright, 21-19. And here is why, ladies and gentlemen. So first of all, Brock Purdy's likely back this week. Kyle Shanahan said he's off the injury report. He's going to start. Now that could mean good news and it could mean bad news for the Niners. The good news is the big play's back. We didn't have that with Mac Jones the last 2 weeks. Ricky Pearsall's a deep threat, right? You got potentially Juwan Jennings coming back. You're good in that regard. Big play guys down the field. The bad news is Purdy, since the start of last year, not that good of a decision maker. Should have in his only game of the year thus far. Should have thrown his 3rd pick of the game against Seattle, which would have ended the game if Reek Woolen just saw the football coming. And this Jacksonville defense, very quietly, is very good. Josh Hines-Allen, Walker, the pass rusher, get to the quarterback. This team is kind of living off takeaways. They've got 7 interceptions this year. That's one more, folks, than they had all of last season, 6. Trevor Lawrence has been protected extremely well by this Jaguars offensive line, which was going to be important anyway. But now Nick Bosa's gone for the year, unfortunately, with an ACL. So I don't have to worry about him. This feels like a defensive battle. This feels like best quarterback of the two wins it in the end. And I'm rolling with the guy who I said it's put up or shut up time, and the offense has been rocky. It was okay against Carolina. Had a really uneven game against Cincinnati. A bad game against the Houston Texans, except when it mattered. Maybe Trevor Lawrence to Brian Thomas Jr., which is a connection that had not worked at all to start the year. Maybe that big completion to get them into scoring territory where ETN finished the drive off with 6. Maybe that got them back into a rhythm. Give me the Jaguars, baby, over the 49ers. Defensive battle, 21-19. That is my upset of the week. All right, here's an interesting one. Indianapolis Colts and the Los Angeles Rams from LA. The Rams are a 3.5-point favorite. So I was talking this morning on the Bryson Carver Show. And by the way, feel free to check it out. The Bryson Carver Show every Monday on 89.5 The Edge from 10 a.m. Eastern to noon Eastern, and every Friday from noon Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 89.5 The Edge that is available to listen via the TuneIn app. I always put the link on my IG story, so feel free to check it out. I said it this morning this afternoon on the Bryson Carver Show when I was talking about some of the college football matchups, and I actually have Illinois beating USC despite being a 6.5-point home dog. It's because I'm thinking there's an element of when you get absolutely humiliated. Illinois lost 63-10 against Indiana on the road. They're a well-coached team. Luke Altmaier's a good quarterback. I don't know if I trust USC's defense. They're at home. Long flight for the Trojans. I think Illinois wins. You've been stewing on that game Sunday morning, all throughout the day. You're kind of down. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we just got dog walked. And then by Monday morning, can we play this game today? Is kickoff in a couple hours? Let's knock off the Trojans. They got embarrassed. They want revenge on whoever they're playing this week. The Rams certainly did not lose 63-10, but they suffered a different kind of embarrassment. A 19-point second half lead blown against the Philadelphia Eagles. The team that you lost to in the postseason, you came closer than anybody by far to knocking them out of the playoffs. You got a 19-point lead. You're feeling good about yourself. You're running the ball with Kyron Williams and Devontae Adams catching long balls from Matt Stafford. And when it's all said and done, some missed conversions on fourth down and 2 block kicks were the difference. And Jalen Hurts went berserk in the second half of that game. Meanwhile, for Indianapolis, feeling good about your defense? Yeah, safe to say that, Lou Anarumo wasn't the problem in Cincinnati. It was the personnel, kind of like what I've been saying the whole time. There's an element for Indianapolis for me. Because we know Daniel Jones has been lighting the world on fire. It's been Indiana Jones. We know that. He's been the early season shocker, comeback player of the year, star guy. If they can compete with the LA Rams, if this game is in doubt with 5 minutes left, I view the Colts higher than I would have if they were, than I did in any of the previous games. Because let's be honest, Denver's a good win, but Denver isn't quite what we thought. And if not for a leverage call against the Broncos, the Colts lose that game. And last week, Tennessee. Okay. All right. If you can go on the road to LA after the Rams coming off of a devastating loss to Philadelphia, McVay's going to have those guys ready to play that defensive line. Jared versus Byron Young is going to be teeing off, trying to get after Daniel Jones. If they can run the football effectively with Jonathan Taylor, if that Colts defense can give Matt Stafford problems, Devontae Adams, not sure if he's going to play or not, that'll be pretty impressive. I will go with the Rams in this spot, minus 3.5, 27-20, handing the Colts their first loss of 2025. But let's see how they compete. Let's see how the game plays itself out, because that is going to really shape my belief on this Colts team for the rest of the season. Because the Rams are one of the big dogs. Rams are a contender in the NFC. I think they're indisputably one of the 3 best teams in their conference. Let's see how the Colts compete against those guys. All right, it is time for now my favorite segment of all time, the third and final game for...
You're a betting man.
If I were a bet man, this is criminally disrespectful. The Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs are playing this weekend. Both teams are 1-2. One of these teams is going to be a team led by Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes is going to be 1-3 going into week 5. And you mean to tell me a Ravens team that has beaten Patrick Mahomes one time, never beaten him at Arrowhead, never beaten him in Kansas City, you mean to sit up there and tell me with that defense, with Derrick Henry, as Andy Reid, let's loosely quote Andy Reid in that State Farm commercial last year, Thumblerooski, or I guess he said Bundlerooski, either way. And as much as Baltimore cannot hold a fourth quarter lead, with Kansas City getting Xavier Worthy back into the lineup, they took Philadelphia down to the wire without Xavier Worthy. They gave, outside of Denver, the Chargers as close of a game as anybody. With Worthy going out third play of the game, their whole game plan is scrapped. And they're underdogs to the Ravens and that defense and that quarterback who can't beat this quarterback? Please. Free money, folks. Kansas City plus 2.5 and to win this puppy outright. 27-24. This should be like Kansas City minus 1.5, 2. That feels fair. Both teams are dealing with their own internal issues. Kansas City struggle offensively. But A, they're literally getting their best offensive playmaker back. That's something. And B, Baltimore's given up 41-38 this season. John Harbaugh can't hold a fourth quarter lead, and you mean to sit up there and tell me you think they're going to cover minus 2.5 on the road in Kansas City when they've never won in Kansas City against Patrick Mahomes? They've beaten Patrick Mahomes one time? If I were a bet man, oh my goodness. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs plus 2.5 and to win this puppy outright. 27-24. Walk-off field goal, by the way. See, I got a comment here. Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the NFL. Okay. The Chicago Bears and the Las Vegas Raiders from Vegas. That game is at Allegiant Stadium. Raiders are a 1.5-point favorite in this game. So both teams have defensive issues. I mean, the Raiders gave up 41 to the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels gone, Marcus Mariota in. This was my big concern for Vegas. Is outside of Max Crosby, the back end of their secondary isn't very good. As great as Pete Carroll is, he'll try and get the most out of that defense that he can. They just don't have the personnel. Chicago, kind of the same thing. Jalen Johnson's been out all season. The fact that they held Dallas to 14 is kind of an indictment on Dallas more than it is a praise of Chicago. But Dennis Allen is a fine defensive coach, defensive coordinator in particular. But I said after that Dallas game, look, I know DJ Moore was wide open. I know Roma Odunze was wide open on that touchdown. I know Caleb Williams was throwing to guys who could not have been more open. And if we can show Caleb Williams numbers against the Cowboys, it's pretty good. What I was impressed with is Caleb Williams able, because what has been kind of the knock on him? I can't pick up on the reads quick enough. Doesn't read the field quick enough. You don't have a choice. You have to against a blitz. And against the blitz, Caleb Williams had a perfect passer rating. 2 touchdowns, no picks, 85% completion, 158.3 passer rating. He was perfect. I said it last week. I'll say it again. The throw to Luther Burden on the flea flicker was the throw of the weekend with respect to Justin Herbert's fourth quarter dime to Keenan Allen against Denver. The ball is just lollipopped in the air. Caleb catches it in one motion, just throws a missile to Luther Burden. Now he still misses the layups. That's something he's got to work on that. Some of these quick, get the ball to your hands quick to a crossing pattern. He's got to work on being accurate on those. He does. I think Ben Johnson will get that worked out at some point by midseason, as I predicted coming into the season. But if you're Chicago, wow, if we can win this game against Vegas, we're 2-2. We're feeling good about our offense. Feeling good about our quarterback and Caleb Williams. Maybe he's kind of out of this slump. Give me the Bears in this game. Plus 1.5 to win outright. High-scoring game. Gino's going to have one of those big-time Gino games because of how bad Chicago's defense is. They're at home. Ashton Genty will do his thing. But I believe in Caleb Williams. I believe in those wide receivers, especially against that Raiders secondary. Give me the Bears 30-26 over the Las Vegas Raiders. And the game we've all been waiting for. Oh, a revenge factor game. The Green Bay Packers coming to Jerry World, coming to Dallas, Texas to take on the Cowboys. Packers are a 6.5-point favorite with the best player in their team coming home, coming to his old stomping grounds. I'm, of course, talking about Micah Parsons, who recently this week said, he was asked about sacking Dak Prescott. What's that going to be like? He's like, loosely quoting Micah, it's going to be tough. I like Dak. We're close, which, by the way, glad he said that because that squashes this whole narrative. Oh, man, Dak couldn't wait to get Micah Parsons out of the locker room. That's nonsense. Not saying Micah and Dak were like best friends. They got along well. That was a ridiculous report, and I hated that was framed the way it was by some folks out there. Dallas is in a world of hurt right now. CeeDee Lamb's out for the foreseeable future. They didn't put him on IR, so that I assume is good news, but he's obviously not playing this week. He's almost certainly not playing next week. We'll see beyond that. And Tyler Booker is out for Dallas for about 4 to 6 weeks, according to Todd Archer. So your rookie guard's gone. The best skill position player in your offense is gone. And now it's Dak Prescott against a Packers pass rush that is monstrous with Micah and Rashawn Gary and company. And he's going to have to rely on and trust the most emotionally unreliable player in the National Football League, George Pickens. Give it late first half. Screw it. Give it early second quarter. You'll start seeing signs of a George Pickens crash out. You might see images like this, towel over the head. It could get ugly fast. I think the Packers build a big lead in the first half. Dallas is forced to throw constantly in the second half. Green Bay plays a prevent, and Dallas, similar to their playoff loss against Green Bay, which is the last time these two teams played. I feel like that was like the not the fork in the road moment, but the line of demarcation for the Cowboys. Like before the Packers loss, after the Packers loss, it's been a different feel in the franchise ever since that loss. And the Packers will remind them just of that. Jordan Love redeems himself against that awful Dallas secondary. Packers -6.5, 34-20 over the Dallas Cowboys. I don't see this game being particularly close. All right, before we get out here, going look at the Bryson's Bleak bet game. As I always say, it's the one game I have no confidence in predicting, but you got to predict them all. I'll take Carolina +5.5. I don't love it, but at the same time, New England's a 5.5-point home favorite against a team that, let's be honest, forget the record. They're kind of on the same level as. Drake May's better than Bryce Young, but offensive line, that goes to Carolina. Defense, toss-up. Receivers, toss-up. Coach, I'll give that to Vrabel, although I do like Canales. Patriots win this one, so that's Bryce's Bleak bet. Upset of the week, Jaguars over the 49ers, handing San Francisco their first loss of 2025. Trevor Lawrence puts together a drive in the fourth quarter, just like he did last week against the Houston Texans. Him and Brian Thomas Jr., they had a big completion for them to look at. Last week against Houston, got them in a scoring territory. Let's ride that momentum and continue that against the San Francisco 49ers. And as far as my if I were a Betman games, got to be objective. You're telling me I get Minnesota -2.5 against Pittsburgh and that god-awful offense and that really struggling defense? Yeah, I think I'll take that with Brian Flores' defense. So Minnesota -2.5, 100% feel good about that one. Again, it's a big line. I get it, but Saints at Buffalo with Buffalo having extra rest? Yeah, 14.5. It's a lot, but this is a top 5 team going against the worst team in football on extra rest, by the way. So Buffalo -14.5. I love it. And finally, I mean, this is insanity. Chiefs are a 2.5-point dog to a 1-2 Ravens team that they've owned. Are you kidding me? With defensive troubles and they get Xavier Worthy back? I feel amazing about all of those. Like I said, 9-7 in terms of the pick'em last week. However, there's an element of back on track if I were a bet man. Got the upset of the week right. Got the Bleak bet right. I'm 1-0. Took the Seahawks to win. Obviously, I took Seattle +1.5. Something tells me week 4 is going to be a very good weekend for carving it up. So we'll see how it plays itself out. And with that, that's all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Hit the subscribe button right down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. Also, be sure tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network's YouTube channel and on Twitter. Check out the Saturday morning tailgate. Myself, Arthur Hurst, Tim Barnard, all three of us diehard college football fans will be with you guys to kick off your college football Saturday tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network. So be sure to check that out. We'll give you our top 25. We've all got curated segments for our own teams. So I've got the Vol View for Tennessee. Arthur's got Buckeyes Breakfast for Ohio State. They've got a game against Washington on the road, Pacific Northwest. And poor Tim. He's a Florida fan. I would be lying as a Vols fan if I didn't say I hate to see my brother suffer. I don't mind to see the Gators suffer. I don't mind to see it one bit. But Gator City. You will want to stay tuned for this one for Tim. This could be really interesting on Saturday morning tailgate. And of course, we'll discuss the biggest headlines in college football. And at the end of the show, we will make our picks for what is a jam-packed start to finish. All kinds of ranked matchups in college football week 5. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. The Saturday morning tailgate, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network. We'll see you there on that show. Hopefully we'll see you here on Carving It Up on Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, Facebook, and X, and hopefully as well on Instagram on Monday. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody. Please stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Let's go to the playoffs, Red Sox. Let's go. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.